Podstock.
Make sure this is on recording. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hit record in 3, 2, 1.
Check.
All right.
Check.
Cool. 3, 2. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the post-game show. Washington gets another 17-15 win. That's 2 back-to-back. Could somebody please let the team know it's okay to win by more than a few points, because it'll help my nerves
Or at the bitter end of the game, for that matter.
Yeah, right. Like, I think you're taking years off my life these last 2 weeks with these close games.
Well, I mean, and the Tampa game came down to the bitter end too, really, with that big long drive and all that stuff.
Right, but that drive put them up by 2 scores, which, is a little different than
still, there was fourth quarter drama.
Oh, absolutely.
But listen, and this is a good problem to have, though. I mean, there's many years in which these games would have been losses.
We've had a solid month of wins, Steve. How often do we get to say that around here?
Not a lot.
Yeah. 4 straight weeks. That's 1 month of winning.
I mean, to be fair, I think we all knew, if you were paying attention, that it was going to be a really rough first half and they were going to be much better in second half just because of the schedule. But that doesn't alleviate the fact that they're playing much better football.
Well, if you told me that the window where we would have 4 in a row was going to have Tampa in it, Seattle in it, Oakland, who I think only Oakland, it's not in that tier where you think of Tampa, of course, but you still think of them as a good team.
They're still a good team.
Yeah. This is not where you expected to have your win streak. Let's be honest.
No, I mean, certainly. I mean, Seattle this season, yes. But looking back at the beginning of the season, you'd never guess that Seattle.
No, because Seattle was ridiculously good last year.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that ends this 4-game streak, and now we got the 5 in a row versus the NFC East to just figure all this out. But we're at 500. We control our own destiny in the playoffs, at least making it into the wild card. If they keep winning, they're getting in.
If they win all 5 games, they're going to be the division champions.
That's true too. There is that, but I'm still focused on at least getting to the wild card first, and then let's focus on you got to beat Dallas next week.
Yeah, but just to set the stage again, if they win 5 division games in a row, that includes Dallas twice, which means that they will be up over Dallas and Philadelphia both.
Right.
So, I mean, they will, if they win 5 games, they're going to win the division.
Of course. Wow. This one was a tough game, though. Let's talk about this game. Defense held up pretty well. Offense, I think we had some stuff to talk about on the offense. But first, Steve, of course, I want to get you to your numbers, because if I don't, you're going to freak out at some point.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you forgot to put in "Hail to the Redskins" last time I asked. So I want it. Yes, you did. It was let's insert it here, and then it didn't happen. So I want that in.
That's what happens when I do it too early.
I know, but listen, they won 4 in a row. We deserve to hear, HTTR.
Yeah. All right. Fine. We'll do it here now.
Did Alex actually insert it? We'll find out tomorrow. You'll find out now. Okay. Stats. Taylor Heineke, 23 for 30, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Once sacked once, quarterback rating of 101.5. Antonio Gibson was 23 of 88 for 3.8 yards per attempt, along with 22. Wendell Smallwood, who was elevated yesterday from the practice squad, was 1 for 13. Taylor Heineke, 3 for 10. Jarrett Patterson, 1 for 2. And Curtis Samuel, 2 for -1. Receiving wise, Logan Thomas, 3 for 48 on 5 targets. That's before he got hurt. John Bates, 3 for 42. Adam Humphries, 4 for 38. Antonio Gibson, 5 for 23. Tim McLaurin, 3 for 22. Wendell Smallwood, 2 for 12. And then DeAndre Carter, De'Ami Brown, both were 1 for 6. And Curtis Samuel, 1 for -1. And on the Raiders side, Derek Carr was 28 for 38, 249 yards, We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Quarterback rating of 90.8. Rushing wise, Josh Jacobs was 13 for 52 for 4.0 yards per attempt. Receiving wise, Hunter Renfro was the leading receiver on the day. 9 for 102 yards. Josh Jacobs 9 for 38, and it goes down from there. Our old buddy, incidentally, Deshaun Jackson was 1 for 14, and
Yeah.
Peyton Barber 1 for 2, which is oddly appropriate.
that is very Peyton Barber-esque.
Yeah. Defense wise, Cole Holcomb 10 tackles. He was the leading tackler for Washington, and then John Allen and James Smith-Williams were credited with half a sack each. I kind of thought it was a full sack for Allen, but whatever. That's what ESPN called it, at least. And then punting wise,
Wait, didn't Ioannidis have a sack?
did I miss one? Oh, sorry. Let's see.
Yeah.
I screwed this up totally. Let me back up. So Matt Ioannidis had a sack.
Right.
And then the first sack was split by Allen and Smith-Williams. So
Gotcha.
yes, 2 sacks
All
total.
Right.
And then punting wise, Trustway 4 for 197. So no, he did not outpunt the offense.
No, he may have outpunted Taylor Heineke, but not the whole offense.
Yes, he did definitely outpunt Taylor Heineke by all of 1 yard.
Yes.
He did outpunt the quarterback. Yeah. It's a competition.
All right. I like I kind of started off here. I kind of want to talk about the defense first because, even though the second half that was a little, they were starting to let up a little. The defense won this game for Washington, no question in my mind.
You know what? I think the Raiders had a really bad game plan in this game.
I think there was some of that too. We talked about it in the pregame show. They talked about it on the broadcast. If the Raiders don't throw for 300, they ain't winning. So
it's just that though, because he did have 38 pass attempts, but the Raiders had a lot more success the more they looked downfield in the middle of the field and found the holes in the zone, and then on those seam routes and stuff that the tight end, the backup tight end ran, and a lot of this offense that wasn't working for the Raiders was on a bunch of swing passes and screens, and that's not really what Derek Carr wants to do, and a lot of those are just called plays. And so I sort of question, yes, Washington's defense, all credit to them, but I kind of wonder what the Raiders offensive coaches were thinking when they designed the game plan.
Well, I mean, look, I think what I got a sense of was the Raiders really wanted to take advantage of Washington's linebacking core. They clearly were trying to target Davis early and Holcomb in the second half. How
many times do we have to see Holcomb on Hunter Renfro? How does that happen?
Right, like at some point, maybe you should put a corner on a wide receiver.
I mean, I get it; it's a zone, and if they're running sort of like a cover 2 shell, and Renfro's in the middle of the field, it's going to be Cole Holcomb. But all the same, for God's sakes, there's got to be. I mean, you see that 2 or 3 times, and maybe there's something we got to do about it.
Maybe something, yeah.
Yeah,
and I think fans were giving Cole Holcomb a lot of crap on social media that I saw. He had a pretty good first half, though. I want to defend him a little bit and say, yeah, he got beat up by a receiver who is just more athletic than him. That's going to happen with how they were calling the game. I'm not going to be that mad about that. But he made a couple big pass breakups early on in the game. The reason Oakland struggled in that first half was thanks to him. He had that one on third down where it looked like a catch and he just hit the guy hard enough to make him drop it. And then he had another pass breakup later. I can't remember exactly when, but was it somewhere in the second quarter that I saw?
He had his ups and downs. He did have his good moments.
Yeah.
And I do find it a little bit hard to blame him for not being able to hang with Hunter Renfro. And I do think part of that was just a scheme thing that some of those plays, the Raiders just did a good job of the way they set their patterns up. It was intentional that Renfro is isolating on a linebacker in the middle of the field, as you pointed out, and so I don't blame him for that. I blamed him and Everett for the deep middle pass to the tight end in the third quarter on the possession where the Raiders got a field goal. It looked like Holcomb tried to pass off the tight end to the safety, and neither one of them really knew what to do. And so I blame either Holcomb or Irvin on that play. But I thought he had his ups and downs. The guy who I thought actually made much more of an impact today than I've ever seen was the other linebacker, Jamin Davis.
Hmm.
Recognizing he was only credited by ESPN at least with 5 tackles or 6 tackles, 5 solo. Um, he made athletic plays, impact plays, and we just haven't heard his name called a lot this year. Hadn't really done much, and today I thought he did.
Well, so interestingly, like I said, Holcomb seemed to be better in the first half. Davis kind of was better in the second half.
Yeah,
It seemed like they almost switched roles where in the first half they were taking advantage of Davis in the passing game, not for maybe as big plays. It was more him on a tight end, that kind of thing. But yeah, in that second half, he was getting to guys in the backfield a lot. He was doing a lot in that second half. You're right. Um, it's interesting to me. They seem to switch roles. You can't have a game where they're both playing great. One of them's either going to be good or the other's going to be good at different times. It just happens like that. I don't know what's going on there. Um, but yeah, I think Davis. Look, we're going to be hypercritical of him because of him being a first round pick. He's
only
coming
fair.
along quite a bit though this season. He's not great. Like he's playing like I would say a second or a third rounder, but it's not like a total bust at this point.
I mean, it's too early to call anybody a bust.
Of course, of course.
You
But
know, but
people, the public is.
well, the public are idiots if they're calling
Yeah.
anybody a bust after 13 games. And I thought it was unfair for people to call Dwayne Haskins a bust so early. When they did, for that matter. But yeah, I mean, I think what you said was sort of going through my head too. He's playing more like a second or third rounder, which frankly is probably where he should have been drafted. I
Hmm.
thought Washington overdrafted him because of
Yeah.
his
A lot of
athleticism.
people had him listed as a third rounder, I think.
Yeah,
A lot of the
and
public
that's
sites, I mean.
well, and he just in part for me it was he didn't have any experience,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. He came from Kentucky, and so he's not playing in some of the big high profile games against big time college offenses and stuff, and so you knew he was going to take time to adjust, and I think that's what's happening, and he's playing better now. At the beginning of the year he was just a total zero. He's probably a negative, in the
Hmm.
beginning of the year. Now he's not, and so it's getting better.
Now he's more league average, I would say, is what.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
probably fair. But in terms of defense, we knew that the Raiders were not going to be able to run the ball very well.
No.
Um, their running backs, if you throw Kenyon Drake in there, they were 14 for 52 because he had one carry for 0 yards, and so that's a little under 4 yards a carry, which is sort of what we thought.
Right.
Um, so I mean, the defense did about what I thought they would do, I guess. Um, to me, it was more of a game plan thing, seriously, with the Raiders, and I just don't understand what they were thinking.
Hmm.
Um, but I thought, we saw some good impact plays from Deron Payne. Obviously Matt Ioannidis. Payne was a beast in the run game, on multiple occasions, so that's good. Um, John Allen was sort of strangely silent today. We didn't see much from him on defense. Secondary wise, this is one of these games where I'd love to see the all 22 film, and of course, since the NFL has totally screwed up Game Pass, it's much harder to use their game
Yeah.
film
Like
anymore.
you'll get it 3 weeks from now where you don't
Well,
even
that
care.
and you can't switch views, like you used to, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to
Yeah.
find plays, and you guys really screwed it up. But I think the corners did fairly well for the most part. Um, Kendall Fuller had a good pass defense.
Hmm.
We didn't hear William Jackson's name called very much, which typically for number one corner is a good thing.
I mean, he
You
had
know,
that breakup in the final play. That was him.
yeah, he did. And when the team is isolating their best receiver on a linebacker, that generally means they're trying to get away from the tough matchup. So,
Yeah.
so I think probably William Jackson did fairly well.
I think he did this week. And I think you know how critical I've been of William Jackson just
Yeah,
in
you've been
general.
critical of him. Fair enough.
Yeah. But I think he played well this week. So, uh, like there are things that drive me nuts. It's second 18. Why are you having your corners play 18 yards off? That kind of thing still drives me insane. And
And
I
that's a
know
scheme thing.
I know it's a scheme thing. I know that's what people do in the NFL now, but it doesn't make any sense. You gave up a 2nd and 18 like it wasn't even a challenge. You know?
I mean, I don't. I've always liked more man coverage than zone coverage, and I guess
Right.
it stems from years gone by. When for me, when you have Daryl Green and Champ Bailey back there, and both of these
Right.
guys can
When
do
Champ
that.
Bailey was our third corner for a year, that was
Yeah, Deion Sanders, was here, and all those
yeah.
guys. I mean, so personally, I'm just more of a fan of man coverage, and
Hmm.
and I don't like soft zones particularly
Oh
because
yeah.
for the reasons you suggested, it's 2nd 18, you're going to drop back in the soft zone, and oh look, surprisingly enough, completion for
You
decent
gave up
yardage.
20 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. Bobby McCain got away with pass interference on that deep ball in the last drive. I don't
Oh
care what Greg
yes.
Olson says. That was pass interference.
It was, and before we got on the show here, I was going through Twitter. Theismann had an interesting point. McCain is wearing yellow gloves or red gloves or white gloves. That gets called, but he was wearing black gloves
On a
uh,
black uniform.
on a black uniform, and that's probably how they didn't see it.
That's a good. See, this is why Joe Theismann is a guy who's a elite quarterback because he knows these things.
Right. What? Well, I mean, he did Monday Night Football for 10 years or whatever it was. Like,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
yeah. Remember, everyone hated him for some reason.
Washington Redskins punter Joe Theismann.
Y- You know what? I would kill for Joe Theismann to be doing Monday Night Football now versus whoever's doing it these days. I don't even know who's calling it right now. It's so bad.
Because in the game previews, I always put the TV announcer crews because one or two people asked me about that, and
Right.
I started listening. And I did notice that in the Monday Night Football last week, I remember because I usually just go grab it off a website or off like the Redskins PR
Right.
packet or something, and I just cut and paste it in there. And I didn't even know who these guys were for the Monday
Yeah.
Night Football crew.
Monday night used to be John Madden or Howard Cos. Like that was your alpha crew. Was Monday and Sunday nights, right? I
Well,
mean,
even
like
Gruden, I mean, all his nonsense aside, later, I mean,
yeah,
Gruden was a big name. He did well and was fun to
exactly,
listen to. Yeah.
exactly. Now it. I mean, it was Booger McFarlane for a while, which
Booger was put in
awful.
not put in a position to succeed. Put it that
No.
way.
Well, having the nickname Booger puts you in a position to fail in life.
Well,
Just
when you put a dude in a movable stage cart
yeah, that was weird
boatmobile
too.
thing,
Yeah,
but like Lewis Riddick is on the crew. I mean, we know who he is, but those other two guys, no
yeah,
idea. But anyway,
yeah.
so back to this game. Yeah,
Sorry. Yes, that
it's
was a
all right. Yeah,
tangent.
it's a good distraction. Bobby McCain absolutely got away with one, and that was
He did.
obviously a game changing non-call.
Yes.
So I mean, I'll take it, but sheepishly,
Well, there were a lot of this is by the rules calls this game that went Washington's way. I'd say majority went Washington's way
I'll tell you
that
the
I
one.
dislike.
Yeah, like the one where
The roughing the
the
passer on Heineke.
well that one, and I didn't like the low block that was that the Raiders
Oh,
cornerback got
yeah,
called
yeah,
against Brandon Scherf. It's like Brandon Scherf himself was low. What the heck is
right.
the guy supposed to do? I just thought it was it's
Well,
one of these silly by the letter of the law kind of rules. It's
eh,
stupid.
and on the other side, just to be balanced, the penalty on Drawn Payne on the screen pass, where they called it a hold, where he didn't even really touch the guy. Like,
Barely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's not a hold. Like, I'm sorry. Um,
Personally, my recommendation to the NFL would almost be to just get rid of holding entirely.
I, I almost there are so many bad rules on the books. They almost need to start over. Like, take the rule book, start from scratch, and come up with something else
I
because
mean, what
this
was
ain't
it like
working.
3 years ago? They couldn't even define what a catch was.
They still can't. They still
Well,
can't.
it's like the guy makes a catch in the end zone, has
Hmm.
two hands on it, 2 feet down, and he rolls out of bounds, and the ball moves
And now
after
it's
he's
not.
had the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just so stupid. But anyway,
Right. Yeah.
what else about the defense on this game? Um,
I I thought they maintained, like a good momentum, good energy going through the whole game. Like when your offense gets as stagnant as the Washington offense was, it's very easy for a defense to kind of roll over, I feel like. And they didn't do that this week. So, and last week, frankly.
no,
You
but to
know.
be honest, I've got to give an assist to the Raiders coaching
Yeah.
staff for game
Yeah,
plan.
sure.
Um, uh, you know, And also, I mean, the Raiders' offense just frankly isn't that good. You put a better offense out there, this game might have been totally different. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you face who you face, and you
Sure.
came away with a victory, and nobody cares how you got there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are a few things I care about, but let's talk about the offense. And I want to
Yes.
start with one thing that irked me really quickly.
Okay.
And I hope I doubt anything will be done about it, but the hit on Logan Thomas that took him out for the game,
Yeah,
that was
I missed that play,
it.
unfortunately.
Go when you have a chance, go back and watch it. In my opinion, it is a very clear, dirty, cheap shot on his knee, and nothing got called. I don't know if the NFL will go back and look at that, but it was on the far side from the run, it looked like, and the guy just went right at his knee, man. I feel like that was a dirty, dirty hit right there. So I just want to put that out there dirty play, in my
And I
opinion.
feel bad for him. He just came back from, the hamstring, he's got a knee
Right,
problem, and
right,
yeah,
exactly. I mean,
totally
there's
avoid.
that too. Like and I don't know if it's the same leg. I don't remember which leg he had the hamstring injury on, but um, Logan Thomas, and I say that because, in my opinion, Logan Thomas, this was a coming out party for him after that injury that he's been, sidelined by for a few weeks. Uh, that catch in the end zone, the first touchdown,
Oh, yeah.
I I need to know how high up in the air he was because I think it was like 12 feet is what it looked like
Well,
to
I
me.
would like to talk about why he had to do that in the first place.
Well, that's a good question too.
Well, the reason is that Taylor Heineke did not have a very good game today.
No, no,
Now,
he did not.
understanding his completion percentage was over 75%. So that's a good day in any case. But a lot of those passes sailed high. The reason
Yeah.
Logan Thomas had to make a spectacular catch is that he threw that pass off his back foot, which the broadcast crew pointed out multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't think he was throwing the ball very well. He still had his sort of Taylor Heineke moxie, thing. The team respects him, and that's good. But I just didn't think he threw the ball well today, and I think that caused problems in this game.
When his, I don't know if you want to what you want to call it, his rhythm or his when he's off though, it's always this. It's a lot of balls are sailing high. He puts way too much arc on everything. And I don't know if it's because he's worried about, the pressure or if he's just having like an off day mentally. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like we've seen this from him throughout the season. His bad days, everything sails high. It's not like he dirt balls. He just overthrows everything. It's very
Well,
weird.
I do have a theory about this, and a lot of times, unless you're talking about elite quarterbacks like John Elway, these
Right.
running quarterbacks typically a lot of times don't have great form because they're so used to throwing on the run at weird angles and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like you point out, Taylor's a little short. He's not overly short, but he's a little short, and that doesn't help. And so, and with apologies to Robbie Duncan, I'm not sure that the ODU quarterback coaching staff is really at the NFL level necessarily in terms of mechanics and all that. And Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to insult your school here, but um, I think Taylor has a lot to learn and he's gotten a lot better. I just thought today was a bit of a regression in that regard, but the past couple games he's been a lot better at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he has. I've always wondered if his height plays into a lot of this. I mean, clearly on things like those screen passes, a 6'6" quarterback doesn't have to lob a ball as much, to get it to the running
Well,
back
like
like
Kyler
Taylor does.
Murray is about 5'8". No matter what
Yeah.
they put on his, no matter we always heard somehow he cheated the measurement test at the
Right. Right.
combine, but I think he's
Yes.
about 5'8" realistically, and he doesn't do this, because that's been coached out of him. So
Sure.
I think it's individual. I just think it's individual and situational, but I just think Taylor's a guy that needs to continue to make progress. And don't forget, he's never played basically in the NFL, more or less. I mean, a little bit here and there. So this is his first long stretch of playing, and I just thought today was a little bit of a regression of him from a form standpoint. And part of it was that they did get a lot of pressure on him at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did get a lot of pressure.
It's like one
y-
sack, but they hit him multiple times. He had to move a lot.
yeah. Yeah. People have been talking about how great the O line's been. He does take a lot of hits, even though he
I
doesn't
don't
get
think.
sacked a lot.
Yeah, I don't think the
But,
O-line's been very good, frankly, at all. To be
yeah,
honest.
I'm saying in general, it seems like a lot of people think this O-line's been great, and I'm like, I mean, like it's okay. Given how many injuries they have, they've held up well. But yeah, Heineke, not a great day for him. I think we can agree. That interception was awful. Although his arm got hit, like I don't
You
know.
know, I
It looked
mean,
like he had bad ball placement, even if his arm hadn't gotten hit.
Greg Olson said his arm got hit, and I looked at that. If it got grazed more than it got hit.
Yeah, yeah.
I just thought it was more of a bad pass than
It was
the
way behind where Terry
yeah.
was. Yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't like his arm got crushed.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
maybe it impacted the defender's hand, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I thought it was a bad pass.
Yeah, it wasn't Joe Burrow's hand right now where his pinky is like 3 times the size of his thumb because he hit his hand on something.
Oh, did
Uh,
that happen today?
yeah. Oh, it's bad. Yeah. I think they won, but his hand was all messed
Because
up.
I didn't watch any. The only game that was on here locally was the Texans and the Colts, and when it was a
Ugh.
boring game, and and it was a blowout, and I didn't watch it. So to
Yeah.
be honest, perfectly honest,
Just didn't
I've been
watch.
trying. No, because I started finally after years. I decided I needed to watch Breaking Bad, and I started this over Thanksgiving weekend. And so
Oh,
now
okay.
I'm hooked on it because it's such a great show. And so I
Sure.
watched like 3 episodes of Breaking Bad while waiting on the watching the game. Instead of watching the Colts and Texans, I watched Breaking Bad.
I was watching the Jets Eagles, and I wish I was watching Breaking Bad. um, all right, Gibson. Good day for Gibson, right? I think
okay,
I know his
so
overall numbers probably not that great, but he had a couple of really big runs. It felt like to start the
yeah,
game.
I want to not emphasize stats for him too much because I think you're right, and he had a big impact on the game. But I would be remiss in not pointing this out. The end of the first quarter, 8 for 53. That's over 6.5 yards a carry. At halftime, 5.4 yards per carry, 12 for 65. Third quarter, 16 for 64. That's 4 yards per carry. By the end of the game, he's at 3.8 yards per carry, which is about his season average. Now,
Right.
one thing I would point out is that going into this game, he was fifth in the NFL in carries. So anybody thinks this is like a, split backfield kind of thing, that's not true. J.D. McKissick is the passing guy. Gibson has got a ton of carries, and he got 23 again today. So he's
Hmm.
getting the ball more than almost any other running back. And Derrick Henry has been hurt. He was leading by far. So by the end of the season, he's going to be in the top 5, absent injury.
Yeah. So
So yes, I think that he had his impact on the game, and stats aside, he's probably more responsible than anyone for the fact that Washington did at least what they did.
yeah, I mean, look, I can't factor in this game to it, but I happen to have the numbers up for the season, and J.D. McKissick about 100 touches, Gibson about 200 touches. I'm just gonna use the round numbers, so he's getting 2-1 compared to McKissick in terms of just touches, which is receptions and runs.
Yeah, he
So
was at 187 going into this game, and so that puts him at 210. You
yeah,
know, for
that's
this.
just runs, right? That you're talking about there.
That's just carry. That's Gibson carries. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I was going to add in receptions. Like you said, McKissick's a receiving back, so like that's where his bread and butter is. So when you
So,
balance it out, it's about a 2-1 ratio that
yeah. So
Gibson.
going into this game, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it was 183, not 187. So that puts him at 206 for
Hmm.
the season. But going into this game, Derrick Henry's at 219. He hadn't played in like 5 weeks.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor with the Colts, Joe Mixon with the Bengals, 209, 208, Najee Harris, 196. And so if this keeps up, he may leapfrog Najee Harris. But point is, he's one of the most heavily used backs in the NFL.
Right.
Now, you know, Derrick Henry averaging 4.3 yards per attempt. Jonathan Taylor 5.8, Joe Mixon
Hmm.
4.4. Only Gibson and Harris are the ones they're only ones below 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are gonna probably keep pointing to the fact that he is a receiver converted to running back. I think for a while longer, but at some point you want to see those numbers kind of match what some of these other elite backs are doing. he's got the size. I think it's still a question of vision with him. There were a couple runs today where he cut inside, whereas if he had bounced outside, I saw a lot more green there for him to get to, and sometimes it was the other way. Although there are some plays that third down run on the first drive, that awful play call where it was a toss and he should have gotten knocked out 5 yards in the backfield.
Yeah.
And somehow he like leaped and like dove right to the first down line. That was a heck of a play by him. And I know it's 1 yard, but like sometimes 1 yard like that is impressive.
I mean, he continues to get better. He didn't look like much of a running back at the beginning of last season. Now he looks a lot like an NFL running back. They still use him in a particular way. I think he has more success when he's not necessarily bouncing to the edge, but when he's hitting, like a B gap and C gap type of thing. He's had some plays where it's just total wide open green space, and I'm good for you for exploiting it. But he's not a guy who's going to ever be like Earl Campbell, despite his size, because Gibbs is a pretty big dude. But that's just not really what he's all about, I don't think yet. They're going to have to either he's going to have to get his yards per carry up somewhere in the mid fours, or they're going to have to supplement him with someone else.
Well, and I think right now I think they are they want McKissick to be that something else, but I don't think it would hurt if next year they draft a running back fairly high to kind of continue to build that backfield. Something like that would probably be a good idea for them. Just if you're going to stick with Heineke, give him some running backs and keep supporting the strong run game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it's strong run game is a relative term.
Right.
I would say that Washington's run game is producing to a certain extent because they're one of the heavier run teams in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Just more the strong run philosophy. They want to be a running team, I think, is what it looks like. So embrace it.
Yeah. But like Taylor Heineke adds a ton to the run game stats.
That's true.
He's more responsible than anybody for them being even mediocre and things like yards per attempt and whatnot. But anyway, back to this game. That's because we're getting a little bit off track here. Yes, Gibson's stats weren't great, but what little the offense produced, he played a big hand in. I guess that's the simplest way to say.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of been the theme these last 4 weeks. He might not be the flashy running back, but he's definitely kind of been the backbone these last couple wins. It felt like of the offense. What else stood out? Kind of felt like a quiet day for Terry McLaurin, in my opinion.
Well, he only got targets.
Yeah. I know the reason why. Someone took a still shot during one of the red zone plays. There were 4 guys covering Terry McLaurin. I mean, like, of course he's not getting a lot of play. Like, that's what's going on.
Well, yeah. If you're game planning for Washington, wouldn't that be the game plan?
In the passing game, probably, yeah.
Like, it's the Bill Belichick theory of defense. This guy will not beat us.
Right.
He will not beat us. Someone else is going to have to. And then when, your peers are guys like Adam Humphries and Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown, and so, by the way, somebody tell me why Cam Sims doesn't even get on the field anymore on offense. I don't understand it.
I saw him. I noticed him on that one big pass that Logan Thomas had. Not the touchdown, but the one where he wwent like 30 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
Cam Sims was on the outside there blocking for him. So.
But he didn't even get an attempt. Or a target rather. I don't understand it, but yeah, I think you're right. The Raiders were going to take him out no matter what.
Yeah. All right. One thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
That's irking me about this team, and that's Scott Turner. Scott
Turner's irked you since the day he arrived. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but this week and last week, what is it with him just sitting on these leads and not like trying to build on a lead? Or it's way too early. It was 7-0, and it's like he just kind of gives up. It feels like.
I think, if you ask me, he knows this offense really isn't that good. They're not. I hate to tell you. And again, this is coming in a win, and good for Washington. We're all happy about that. But let's be honest and fair. and look at what does this offense have? They have an elite receiver in Terry McLaurin, and then a
Right.
bunch of average at best players. And then a quarterback who has got a great story and we love, and we've been singing his praises. But does Taylor Heineke scare anybody with his arm? He scares people with his legs and his ability to make off schedule plays, but he's
Right.
not scaring anybody with his arm either. And this offense's numbers are mediocre to poor in many areas. And so I think I'm not really defending Scott Turner because I sort of understand, and they've in the past several games have gotten this habit of let's try to run the clock out with like 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter,
Right.
and that's what you're saying.
I mean, dude, they were trying to do it with 12 minutes left in the first quarter at this point.
Yeah, well, and I just think part of it is that Scott Turner knows this offense isn't all that good.
Look, I understand this offense has limits, but my bigger issue is the predictability on things like it's 2nd and 10. Of course, he's going to just run the ball. Like he does it almost, I'd say 80% of the time he runs it on 2nd and 10. If they don't make a completion in the first down, he's just going to run and it's going to get stuffed, and then he's on 3rd and long.
The other very predictable thing is anybody in the entire world going to be fooled by Washington's let's try to draw you off sides on 4th and short?
No. No,
never
this
works.
is like the 5th week they've tried it and it's never worked.
No, it's never.
And was it last week they got a penalty doing it because someone forgot to call a timeout, or was it before that?
I don't know.
One of them that happened. I remember
it almost happened this time. They
Yeah.
called timeout with like 1 second left on the play clock.
I mean, well, a flag got thrown and they're like, "Oh no, they called a timeout. It's fine." Yeah, that, and then of course the whole 3rd and 1. Let's just run the ball and let's run it to the outside. We always know where it's gonna go. You know?
Well, because they don't have a great interior runner.
No.
And look where Gibson produces. He produces in the interior if there's a big hole.
Right.
Like one of those holes. One of his better plays. It was in the 3rd quarter, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the hole open almost before the snap happened.
Yeah.
On the right side of the line, all of a sudden there's like tons of green space, like that fast, and good for him, he exploited it. But other than that, he sort of needs to bounce out, at least out of the interior of the offensive line to do his thing, and that's kind of why I thought Jarrett Patterson would get more of a chance this year than he has.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten much this year either. I think they need, and part of it's the lack of great interior blocking when you're on your 4th center. I'm sure that plays into it. They're like Ishmael played okay, but do you really want to run behind the 4th guy?
No.
Of course, I understand that, but I don't know. There's a lot of predictability there. As I wrote, I think he thinks vanilla is too exotic of a flavor sometimes. So
I just think it's a lack of talent. More than anything, it is a lack of talent. You cannot run the Rams' greatest show on turf offense.
I don't need him to do that, but like run some more, West Coast stuff. Don't just give up on, all these drives. It feels like that's what they're doing.
I hear you, and I'm not totally disagreeing with you. I'm sort of more presenting a devil's advocate argument here.
No, I get that.
But I definitely agree with you. In the 4th quarter, I mean, for God's sakes, you're trying to run the clock out as soon as the 4th quarter starts, practically.
Mm-hmm.
And that one drive against the Bucks was something that doesn't happen in the NFL.
Right.
It was once in a forever kind of drive. And that's not going to happen. And let's also be far more honest, and say the Raiders and all their penalties. I counted 9, but I think I screwed it up. So I wouldn't necessarily go with my 9. It was around that range at least.
Sure.
Boy, they kept multiple drives. The last touchdown drive was
Mm-hmm.
only really because the Raiders handed them a drive. Granted, Washington finished it at the end in the red zone, but that drive only existed because of the Raiders and their penalties.
Absolutely. Well, and look, to be fair, that happened. The Raiders got a touchdown off of a drive like that too. But
yes, they did. Yeah, absolutely, they did.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you don't want to see that. Obviously, you'd rather see teams just win on their own merits. So
look, dude, I'll take a win. However, I don't care, because to me, when you say it's not on their own merits, well, that means the team is playing undisciplined football, whereas the team getting less penalties is playing, for the most part, more disciplined football. So
yeah,
I mean,
there
it's
is
a part
that.
of playing football, I think.
I think that you make a good point there. All right, do we want to do game balls?
Yeah, and the only thing, one more about penalties is this is the history of the Raiders. So they are 31st in the NFL going into this game with 89 penalties. And if you read no one from Tampa's hold on penalty, Alex Leatherwood is the most flagged player in the NFL.
Mm.
So this is not something that was unexpected. This is what the Raiders are, and it's hurt them today. If they'd played disciplined football, that drive probably wouldn't have happened. Washington probably wouldn't have scored, and the Raiders probably would have won. Let's be honest.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't even think about this, but how mad do you think John Gruden is that the Raiders lost this one?
What'd you say? How happy?
Do you think how mad John Gruden is that the Raiders lost this? I mean, it's fair to say Washington probably cost him his job with the
Well, I
email
mean,
leaks.
he's probably mad at the Raiders too for not defending him and firing
That
him.
too.
So
That
he might
too.
be mad at, he might not have watched this game. He might have pounded a couple six packs and watched Breaking Bad.
That might be the smarter move.
Yeah, he's
if
probably
you're
mad
John
at
Gruden right now.
my guess. He's got a lawsuit going on against the NFL for this, and he
Yeah,
lost.
I'm
in my
assuming you
view,
talked
probably
about that on IJB.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a lawsuit he probably should win, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
not
I think
defending
so.
what he said and all that, but I mean, anyway, yeah, that's an IJB topic.
Yeah.
Sorry. Game
All right,
balls.
let's do game balls.
Okay.
And roll on out. Do you need
Well,
a
I
minute?
went first last time.
Yeah. If you
You
need a
go
minute,
first.
I'll go. I'll
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right.
All right. Offense, I think it's an easy call for me this week, and that's Logan Thomas. That touchdown catch was a thing of beauty. I know he missed that one ball that Heineke threw it high, but he should have been able to catch that one ball where Heineke rolled out from the near sack and all that. But overall, Thomas had a great day. Probably the reason they won this on offense. Defense, it's a bit trickier for me because I initially was going to say Cole Holcomb, and then his second half he was not great, and I was like, maybe I'll go Jamin Davis because he's playing good in the second half. So I think I'm going to go with Davis because I think it's how you finish. But a handshake to Holcomb, I think he did better than most people will give him credit for.
Okay.
So I'm going Davis and Thomas.
Yeah, I can't give Taylor Heineke a game ball today.
No, I don't.
To me, it's either Antonio Gibson or Logan Thomas. I was leaning Thomas before you spoke up, and I'm just to be different. I'm going to give it to Gibson, in spite of the fact that I criticize him for having at the ending with 3.8 yards per attempt. The fact of the matter is he did keep a lot of those drives alive, and 23 carries in the modern NFL is a lot. So I'll give it to Gibson, and defense is a lot tougher because Cole Holcomb led the day with tackles, but I just can't, not him. And Davis, like you said, I mean, it wasn't all sunshine and roses for him either. I was thinking Bobby McKean, but he should have got a flag. So
he had a couple other good plays though.
He did, I know, but I mean, truly, that play should have been.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
I'm gonna go Kendall Fuller because he got 8 tackles, and that's a lot of tackles for a corner.
Okay. He also had one or two pass breakups.
Yeah, and he did, right. And he had some pass breakups. ESPN didn't credit him for a pass defense for some reason, but he did. I thought he had at least one.
Does ESPN track that stuff accurately? Like, that's one of those stats no one tracks very well, I feel like.
Well, and also partly because it's a bit subjective. But regardless, for when a corner makes some good plays that you and I both saw and has 8 tackles on the day, that's a good day. So I'm going Kendall Fuller. So Antonio Gibson, Kendall Fuller, and I want to give my hearty handshake award to Brian Johnson.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Who, I mean, you come in with the reputation of being both the lead singer of AC/DC and your first kick for your new team is a 48-yard game winner on the road. And that kick would have been good for distance-wise. He had it by 10 yards. It was kind of hook and right, so it probably would have been good from 53, 54, I'd say maybe.
Yeah, I would say
eventually kicked. It would eventually, it would have eventually hooked out. But regardless, he made it.
His field goals looked a little shaky, or extra points looked a little shaky too.
Yes, but at the end of the day, they went through the crossbar. So a hearty handshake to Brian Johnson for not cracking under pressure and getting a game winner in game number 1.
All right. I think I agree with that. So 2 hearty handshakes for him.
There you go.
All right, guys. We will talk to you next week. It's Dallas week. So, that's what's going on, guys. Get geared up. Get excited. Talk to you later.
Maybe the Dallas fans will actually be excited